Today on Coalcracker, we're going to be stealthy. What's up guys, Dan here, Coalcracker, Bushcraft. So, stealthy. Are we going to be stealthy today? Maybe a little bit. I think that this topic, the Dakota Fire Pit, always comes up in stealthy type conversations because it's like a low profile, hidden type fire. And we're going to talk about that. But more so, we're going to talk about how to actually construct one of these things. And then I'm going to tell you from a Bushcraft survival standpoint why they're good and what modifications you can make to them to fit your needs. So let's get started. So probably the easiest way to start out is by explaining what the Dakota Fire Pit is and how we are going to create it, and then we'll actually create one and show you it in action. So when it comes to a Dakota Fire Pit, what it basically is an underground fire. Now if you watch my channel, you know that fires need three things: heat, oxygen, and fuel in order to burn. If we dig a pit though, and we try to light a fire down inside, it's very hard for oxygen to get down inside of it. Therefore, we have to make a secondary hole that feeds the fire with oxygen. So these fires, why I say they are stealthy and they're referred to by a lot of people as stealthy type fires, is because they are underground. So there's not a lot of visible flame coming out of the fire. And then if you are very prepared minded, if you were in a location that you shouldn't have a fire, or you're hiding out or something like that, and you make a fire like this, when it's done, you can cover it in and there's very little trace of a campfire left. And if we're being very realistic, most people are not going to be in situations in which they need a hidden fire. So I use a Dakota Fire Pit rather than stealth camping to cook or boil water, because it almost becomes much like a jet boil. It's feeding lots of oxygen in, it's a very small contained area, and the heat has only one place to go, and that's up. The worst part of a Dakota Fire Pit is the fact that we have to dig in the ground. Now you can go and get a stick and sharpen it and dig it out that way. In my case, I have a small shovel, so I'm going to begin to dig. The first hole is going to be our fire pit. Now the size of the fire pit itself can vary depending on your needs. The smaller and the tighter the hole, the more flame and heat you're going to get out of the top. The bigger it is, the more heat's going to escape in a wider area. So you have to make that decision up front what you want to do. Also, the depth of the hole does matter, okay, because we're going to be digging a secondary hole into it. So how deep? On average, I would say about a foot, maybe a little bit more. I wouldn't go too deep with this because it just becomes a nightmare trying to dig that secondary hole. So let's shoot for 1 foot and maybe something the size of one of those big coffee cans. All right, so we have our hole dug. It's pretty deep. It's going on close to a foot. The dirt that I brought out, I just pile up to the side right back here where my hand is, because what I like to do after I get my secondary chute dug is I'll use some of this dirt to fill this in, create a little bit more depth in this hole, and give us a little bit more heat coming out of the top. Now we are on to our secondary shaft, which I like to call. So we have our primary fire pit, which is right here. Think of like this cylinder. Now we need to dig a hole at an angle going to close to the base of that fire hole. Okay, now this could be a little bit difficult. You don't want the ground between the two to collapse. It doesn't have to get super complex. So I'm going to give you a couple tips, and then this is one of those things you just got to get down and dirty and just work with it till you get it to actually work out right. One thing I could tell you though, you don't want your shaft hole, okay, super close to your fire pit. Like you don't want them just right next to each other. You want that shaft drawn out a little bit. A foot to 2 foot is going to be good. It's going to provide nice airflow. So what I found works really nice is having a stick with a point on it to be able to actually push through. And then what I'll do is I'll come out that foot or two from my fire hole, and I'll use my shovel again, and I'll dig down just a few inches, okay? That way I'm not working right from the top of the ground with my stick, and then I'm going to work this stick across this way, okay? This is going to give you a good estimate now, because me looking at it, I'm like, this is going to be a really hard shot across here. So what I'm going to do then is move in just a little bit closer to the hole, all right, break some ground, and then try to reevaluate if I can get a hole across that way. So I'm going to work on that for a second, and then we'll show you. So here's another angle of it. So this is my hole, and it goes down to the base of my fire pit here. Now, this hole size can vary dramatically. This is going to be another one of those things that you just got to play around with, okay? Something 2 to 3 inches in diameter seems to work pretty well with me for that size hole. But again, the bigger your fire, the more oxygen it needs, the more you might have to open up that hole. So utilizing that stick, as you saw I did in the video here a second ago, you can take that stick and just work it around in a circle, opening that up, and that should get the job done most of the time. All right, so I'm just going to use a Yuko Sweet Fire for this. I did collect my materials. As far as getting this going, you need to think about Dakota Fire Pit in the same way as you would think of as a twig stove. So you're not going to get big, I'm trying to look for a big log here, you're not going to find a big piece of firewood and jam it in this thing. It's going to be a constant, ongoing, small stick type process from beginning till end. So we're going to get this thing going here. I'm going to drop this down. If my fire starter is not burning down and there, it goes out, which it shouldn't because these things are pretty good, then we know we don't have any oxygen flow. We have to open up that hole a little bit, all right? Now, if you're thinking about the whole stealth thing, you are gonna have some smoke. You're still gonna have the smell of what's going on here, but the fire is going to be contained down inside the ground. All right, guys, so we have been cooking our Dakota Fire Pit for a while now. You can tell that there are some flames coming out. I can always let this die down a little bit if I totally want to eliminate that. But what you need to think about is this. If that fire was up on the ground, we would now be having a foot plus that of flame. So we'd be somewhere up in this area compared to just low-lying below the brush line, helping us disguise this even a little bit more. But now from a bushcraft standpoint, this thing is phenomenal for boiling water and cooking food because you get a lot of power out of this. So I just took my stick that I was digging with in my hole, split it with my axe, and now I can really easily just lay that over the top of that rim we made with the dirt, and I can utilize this. If you look at that flame, it's very consistent, coming right up the center of there, acting like a little jet stove. That way, of course, when your water's on there or whatever's on there is going to get maximum heat super quick. All right, there you go, guys. Dakota Fire Pit. That's how you set the thing up, and different uses for it, from stealth camping out to setting up a bushcraft camp with it. Give this one a try. I know you're gonna love it. If you like this video, hit the subscribe and like button below, and I think that's about it. So check us out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com, and until next video, stay in the woods.